Blackballed. 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 Blackballed.
What is up, everybody? My name is James D. Fiore, and this is Blackballed. I don't want to give them too much. Every time a comedian is back there, I know what they're doing. They're like analyzing each fucking syllable and see what they can create a zinger with. It'll probably be that I use the word zinger. He started his stand-up career when he was 17 years old. And the only other comedian that I personally recall, and I don't know everything about comedians, who had a bio that was similar to that was Dave Chappelle, who apparently was around the same age when they started. I couldn't even imagine, as a person who's been on a stage doing things like slam poetry and rapping and shit like that, like to try to be funny. Like you can fake coolness. You can't really fake funny. I love talking to comedians because they're the realest people I think in the world. And without further ado, here is Simon Rakoff. Simon, how are you, buddy?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. I want to first talk about ADHD because I was told by my doctor that I was a poster child for ADHD. They diagnosed me when I was 34, and they were like, no one's ever even suggested this. And I'm like, no, none at all. And it was like I was like the Rain Man of ADHD people, and still am in a lot of ways. I really liked listening to you talk about it. I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I just want to open the show with the clip so that we can like move past it because I'm sure it's not something you really want to like chat about for half an hour. But like, because we had it in common, I'm gonna play this clip and come back and then let you have the floor just because I hope it's not a bit that I misread and the joke's on me, but because it was a really good message. Well, here we go. Hold on.
I'm Simon Rakoff, a comedian with ADHD, and I guess my aha moment was when I was watching a movie while I played a video game, answered emails, and worked on my material at the same time. I liken it to being a high-powered sports car with no steering. So the engine is just vroom, vroom, but you're mostly just going round and round in the parking lot.
Did it take you a while to come to grips with the fact that it even existed, like it did for me?
Well, it didn't exist when I was growing up. I mean, This is a new thing, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. I don't think that existed. I mean, I'm 61, almost 62 years old. So none of that was a thing when I was a kid. It was just, he's in the moon. He can't pay attention. He won't sit still. You know, there was no, diagnosis. It was just trouble in class.
Yeah, like he's a little shit.
Well, yeah, I mean,
like because I had to go to the bathroom every single class. It didn't matter what class it was. I just always had to go to I had the worst bladder in the history of like grade school kids. I couldn't sit still in my desk. I wrote all over my desk all the time. I was late for recess. I was late for school. I was like suspended. It was just.
It's also the fact that it often helps for people like us to be doing something else to help us pay attention to things. And people think that's a sign that you're not paying attention, when in fact it's the coping mechanism for when somebody's talking to you. If you're actually looking at them, then your brain is elsewhere. If you're looking at something else, your brain can be on what you're hearing.
That's so funny that you say that, because one of the knocks that I get is that I don't look into the camera on my podcast. I've been told it countless times, and it's true. I don't. I sit there and I look around and try to find the words and do that. But I feel like, I don't know, like inauthentic, staring at this little
camera. I know the camera's above the screen, but then I can't look at you. So,
well, why wouldn't you want to look at me, right? Like, why wouldn't I want to look?
Want to.
No, what I'm saying is, why wouldn't I want to look at you? Like the person
That's
I know that just sounded like a bald love moment, but what I meant was like when you're talking to someone, you want to look at them. You don't want to look at some.
I dig.
Yeah.
All I can see now is the shine off my glasses. I should probably take them off while I do this. There you go. I can see much less well, but I can still see.
I think you looked fine in your glasses, Simon.
I look fine. It's more. I hope the gleam off them. The reflection.
Oh, it's not that bad. Anytime I see reflection in glasses, it reminds me of Kevin Costner's glasses in JFK.
Oh,
I don't know what they were made of, but like they were always white with the sheen of light. And then they said it was part of the creative in post, but it wasn't.
Or Sin City with what's his name, Elijah Wood. Remember?
That's right.
Anyway.
I saw Shad's reflection in DJ Kool Herc's shades in the documentary Hip Hop Evolution. Dude, we could start like a whole game show about trivia that. No, we couldn't. Never mind.
We wouldn't be first.
No, I don't think we would be. Listen, I read something, or I heard you say on an interview from 2 years ago that, and I couldn't tell if you were kidding or not, but I suspect you were not, that you're no longer ambitious and that you don't really want for anything and you're perfectly content. Is that basically what you said?
I think that's sort of true, but I don't think that's really a new thing in my life. I've never been particularly ambitious. I mean, the fact is, I love doing what I do. You know, I know there are people who go into stand-up in the hopes of being in show business, as it were. You know, it's a stepping stone, but I've always loved it. I mean, I've been a fan of it since I was a child and been loving doing it, as you said, since I was 17 years old. It's over 44 years I've been at this, and I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it.
And you joke about what you know most of the time. So like, were you joking about detentions, and were you or were you precocious? Like, did you try to seem a bit older ever, or?
I mean, I was always older than my age mentally. Not emotionally, but intellectually. I was a smart kid at 17, but still, I could only talk about what I could talk about. I did a bit about how, the parents would make you clean your room before guests came over. And I always think, what a bad party that must be.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, it's so tight.
Hi, welcome to the house. Skip the preliminaries. Where's your kid's room?
But then you must have had a good instinct for. I'm always fascinated with comedians because I find them to be like this ecosystem of knuckleball pitchers and hockey goalies. Do you know what I mean? Like hockey goalies are the hockey players that are like touched or different, and knuckleball pitchers the exact same kind of like MO, and comedians as far as the stage goes. You know what I mean? Like, or TV or whatever. You guys are all so like the same, but so completely unique. And I just love it because you're also these like bastions of free speech, of like, of context deciphering and all that kind of stuff where we have to actually use our minds when we want to listen to what you have to say. It's not, the good jokes are the ones you got to work for a little bit. And I don't know if you're on a side in that whole culture war and comedian thing where people.
Oh, I totally am.
Okay, so what side are you on?
I think they're idiots. All of them.
Which side? Like both sides are idiots?
Of course. It's
ridiculous.
That's
an easy.
I go on the forums where they're fighting with each other, and I say it's outrageous. First of all, no comedian should care what another comedian thinks, because we're the only people in the world who will never buy a ticket to see you. That's right. There's probably some sort of axe to grind. You're
like an electronic music promoter. You just never pay to get into the club.
You're behind. You're lower than us in the food chain, so who cares what you think? Or you're higher than us in the food chain, so why would you care what we think or do?
Yeah.
But I also liken it to music. If you look at music, right? You go to the Grammy Awards. It's not like there's fights between the rap guys and the country singers, or the polka artists and the classical musicians. Everybody has some respect for the fact that whatever they do is for somebody.
That's right.
That's right. I often say that to people. I say, why are you fighting amongst yourselves about there's no particular style of any kind of art that is illegitimate. It doesn't work like that.
I agree.
You know?
And we're so hypocritical about it too. Like I used to say that about hip hop lyrics, about like people that like Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife and shit, like used to complain about hip hop lyrics. And I was like, and I always, even at that time, I was like, I don't think like Oliver Stone is like asking Tipper Gore's permission to do a movie that shows something gratuitous or swears or whatever. Like why are certain things singled out? Music, like you said, and comedy seem to be singled out. And not only that, but each side has a monster. And I don't care if they're not equal or whatever, that doesn't matter. The right has a monster. It's, you know, the monster of the right is like racist and sexist and religious, probably. And the monster on the left is like, I know everything. I know what's best for people who don't agree with me. And oh yeah, I don't see the irony in attacking two black comedians because I'm the monster on the left, for things that are like, you know, that you shouldn't be attacking people for. That's the way I look at it. I mean, well, I thought, yeah, go ahead.
See, if I'm looking at it as an audience member, my attitude is always the same as I look at it like parents going, your music is just noise, or Catskills comics going, why do the kids work so blue?
Yeah.
I mean, it may not be for me, but just because it's not for me doesn't mean it's not for anybody. I have no problem with people saying, I don't like that. My issue is always with nobody should listen to that. Well,
but it's never the joke on paper.
Anybody else should enjoy.
But it's never the joke on paper. It's the way the person delivers it. And it's so important. That's why Ricky Gervais gets away with things that other people don't get away with. And same with, I would say, Dave Chappelle. Like as far as like, you know, big guy Bill Burr to a certain extent. Because they're on record saying your opinion is bullshit. And I'm just going to say what I want because my context is not what you think it is. And it kind of makes them bulletproof, in my opinion. I mean, I haven't seen anything bad.
I think comics should be bulletproof.
Yeah.
We're not running for office. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we take Norm Macdonald, okay? The late, great Norm Macdonald had a joke that I think is about comedy. And it's about cliff diving. He says there's only two categories of cliff diver. Grand champion and stuff on a rock. Okay, but that's true of comedy, right? I mean, you're taking a chance with everything that comes out of your mouth all the time. It's the only pass-fail art form. So for people to judge that aren't actually in the audience at that moment watching the show, it doesn't matter what they think. You're not working for anybody but the people who are actually attending the show.
Yeah. I would even take it one step further. And I think comedians are so important that not only do they embody exactly what you just said, but they're not the privileged folk that can do that. They are the ones that are the examples to us, telling us we can also utilize free speech. We may not deliver funnies like you do, but we should be able to have thoughts that leak out of our pie holes and not have to, like, you know, pay the ultimate price if someone doesn't get it. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what.
Well, yes and no, because the point of comedy is there's no money, there's no glory, there's no respect, but you get a license. Is the point that you can say what you want. You know, the jester was the only one who could make fun of the king and not be beheaded because that was his job. I can understand that if somebody goes on Twitter and makes some awful joke and they're in some public sector or even private sector job where a company has a reputation they're trying to maintain, you know, you are taking a chance of losing that. In the same way, the comedian, if they do badly, can lose everything they have built up in their career. But that's
that's fair. Like
the audience that wants to see you.
I kind of want to dig into that a little bit, and maybe the reason why, and I may be connecting dots where there aren't any, but I really enjoy Patton Oswalt, and I saw a picture of your Instagram with you and him, and
I don't even remember.
Oh, you don't? Oh, well, fuck. There goes my whole fucking point.
That's okay. Talk to me.
I was gonna say that I am wondering, like, specifically. Like, does it, and I'm not saying you have to throw him under the bus so you don't like him or whatever, but if you were Dave Chappelle, would you have not made certain trans jokes? And if you're Ricky Gervais, would you not have made certain jokes? Like, is there something you just have an honest disagreement with about, like, any comedians that say jokes that may appear offensive to you?
Well, there's a million comedians that do jokes I find horrible.
Not horrible, but like, you know, ethical, like, you know, whatever.
No, I know what you're saying. I meant that in that sense.
Okay.
No, I'm not talking about bad jokes. Most comedians have bad jokes.
I thought it was a joke, a bad joke.
No, I'm saying if you're talking about, for instance, okay, Jeff Dunham is that ventriloquist, right?
Right.
He does the dead terrorist guy. It's the most racist shit you've ever seen. In my opinion, it's a totally racist bit. But his, corn-pone audience howls and screams at this racist stuff.
It's the delivery.
It's not the delivery. It's that they're idiots and he's an idiot and they work for each other and they're entitled to each other. I don't have a problem with, it's like saying it's like saying I only listen to classical music and everything else is crap. Or I only eat French restaurant food, and if you go to Burger King, you're an idiot. You're entitled. I don't judge what other people want to enjoy. And I don't think anybody should be stopped from saying what they like and listening to what they like.
I
that
think
doesn't
we also
obligate me to listen to it.
I think, yeah, that's true. It's like you said at the beginning, it's just like music. I think there are some people who are just like, they're wandering around in the digital wilderness, not really knowing what's on the like cannot say list sometimes, and they don't find out until they say it. Like I said a word to describe people who can't walk on the Dean Blundell show that I had no fucking idea was a word that you couldn't say since like 1986 or something. Like I just didn't know. I don't use it in conversation, and I don't want to use it now because I guess I'm learning my lesson.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And but I'm not big enough to be like canceled, I don't think. And I'm wondering, do we make much ado about nothing like all the fucking time now?
Yeah, but that's up to the people who think that it matters.
So we're talking about corporations that are afraid of optics when the audience rebels against something that someone they represent says. It's optics, right? Optics and money.
The audience, if you're talking about the audience that's actually at the show, watching the show,
they always laugh.
That's one thing. That's their option. They paid money. They're out for their good time. And it's the comedian's job to give them that good time. But some faceless, nameless person on the internet who may or may not even mean what they're saying, why anybody should listen to anything that says is, to me, a mystery. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe I don't think so. Come from a time where, you want to come up to me and discuss something you disagree with? Let's talk it out.
You don't seem too old. And with all the Adderall coursing through your veins, you're going to be like 50 forever. It's going to be fine. No, I'm just kidding. I actually think that the Will Smith, Chris Rock slap was like the greatest thing to happen to pop culture in like a decade. I really do.
It was just bullshit anyway.
I know.
But everybody, that's been discussed.
I don't want to discuss the slap. I want to discuss my theory that you seem to be poo-pooing immediately. It was a pop culture moment, not because Will Smith should have slapped him or that we love Chris Rock. It was because the ripple effect that it had in these like areas that you would never expect, like talking about men who are allegedly, emotionally abused by their spouse, and it happened parallel to the Amber Heard stuff. I just thought it was interesting. I thought it was, and a lot of really important conversations happened. And it's not like Will Smith deserves a cookie, but the circumstances are what they are. And
I'm laughing at your phrase "important conversations."
Yeah, well, the important conversations would be like people with the and look, I think that important conversations. I'm not talking about Twitter and Facebook and fights. I'm talking about like. People were able to like there was really well thought out things written about relationship dynamics between men and women and how men who are like dominated in relationships often no one knows because they're too ashamed and it was interesting. I found it was almost like the bizarre world version of saying when Me Too happened, that's a macro level. Finally, women might have the courage to speak out because of what all these horrible men did, and what all these courageous women did and all that kind of stuff. And I need to find the silver lining because otherwise then we're all just enamored by, Will Smith smacking the shit out of Chris Rock. Like,
Okay. You see, what you're talking about, I call it the porn argument. Okay.
Oh, well then I'm already in agreement with whatever you're about to say.
which is, once there was sort of an accepted amount of knowledge that porn existed and that people watched porn, the good thing about it was that suddenly sex that was so taboo and people were so embarrassed and people were so ashamed, suddenly it's like, oh, I see. I'm not the only one who enjoys this or enjoys that.
We're all
or
freaks.
done by this or that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So in that sense, yes, the fact that things are public and acknowledged and discussed is good. But that still doesn't mean that anybody's opinion, because that's all it comes down to, is more valid or less valid than anybody else's opinion. You know,
Maybe
you got
not.
to look at at sort of, in my opinion, it's the motivation of things, right? If there's malice or not, right? My buddies and I, my comedian friends and I get together. If you had it just written, you know, transcribed without any of the laughing or delivery, it's just hate speech.
Yeah.
Back and
Oh,
forth.
I know. I know.
I'm saying, right? It would
Yeah.
be shocking and dismaying. But
We-
the context is we're old friends who take the piss out of each other as part of our way we relate, and we'll use everything about each other, race and culture
Yeah,
and
that's
sexual
right.
orientation and whatever, you know, to make
It's how
fun
you
of
know
each
you
other.
have good friends. That's how you know you have good friends.
Well,
You have to be
that's
able to
how
tear a
our
strip off each
circle
other.
goes. People like us. There are plenty of people who have none of that in their friendships. They have, you know,
Are you sure? Because I
people
think they're.
like
I think there's just a lot of hypocrites. People finger wag in public, but say the same shit in private.
I'm not saying they finger wag. I'm thinking of, you know, my lovely aunt, who I promise you never has sworn in her life, and is always nice and respectful and thinks highly of everybody she bothers with. And if she doesn't, she wouldn't bother with them at all. There wouldn't be a moment. I can't imagine my aunt going, you know, hey, your balls still itch? I just can't hear her saying anything close to that.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean she's not a sincere person. It's a question of generations and politeness and upbringing. You know, not everybody deals in insults, but me and my friends do. So
That's like seeing an advertisement for like a gym membership, and it's like, you know, 1995, and you think it should be cheaper, but you already have a gym membership, so it doesn't matter. But you call and complain anyways. You know, like,
yeah,
what are you doing?
yeah. And again, I just think that I mean, I tend to go for de-escalation of conflict. This is my general go-to position in most things. You know, unless something is completely outrageous, there's very little chance that any conflict is one-sided and the other side is wrong.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. And then there's always the people who like to escalate on both sides of any conflict. And those are the real problem in every situation.
I feel this way, and I thought it was because of ADHD, but I'm just wondering if you feel the same. I've always felt like I've been able to sort of like ascertain people, but you know, like I could read them fairly easily, not, you know, whatever. And I always thought that it was almost impossible for me not to react to the fact that I knew that the person's look on his face was like disrespectful, like they were like their tone, the way they, and I was one of these people that couldn't not notice it and then always had to say something. It took me so long to figure out that if I just shut the fuck up, the other person's alone in their negativity and I can just walk away. Like, it literally took me till I was 40 to realize that existed. Did you have a similar kind of like, you know, conflict resolution issue in your life at all when you were younger, even? Like,
well, the thing, not really, because I mean, I've always been small. I've always been the funny guy. So for me, conflict was either I'm getting bullied, which I learned to handle very young with, you know, humor, and, you know, it's amazing how I've always found it funny that devastating somebody with words is way more painful to them than if you fight back, you know, physically and lose. I mean, you know, if you can make somebody look like an asshole in front of everybody around you, it doesn't matter how tough they are. They're going to shrink and disappear.
I can't remember who said it, but someone, Dean Blundell related to me, and someone else said it, I think, but about how if someone sends you an email that's just filled with hateful things and you don't receive it, does it impact you? And obviously it doesn't. But then for some reason, these words exist in this digital format, and then you click on it and then you read it. Why would those words impact you? You're impacting yourself. It's the way.
Bear in mind, I've been a comedian since I've been a teenager. I've had rooms full of people hate me multiple times, as all comedians have. What is one person going to do to me that's going to?
But I can't tell. I guess I'm trying to like, and maybe I shouldn't do this, but I'm just kind of curious. Are you like, if you had to pick a side, would it be like the free speech side or like I'm pretty woke side? Like, or are you like, fuck you, I'm a moderate. Sometimes I go that way. Sometimes like, are you one of those three?
Well, I'm more like, I think that anything can be discussed. There's no topic or word off the table for me.
Yeah.
My question is, are you actually trying to make people laugh, or are you just trying to be mean to shock in the hopes that some other mean asshole is going to laugh at those other people who are down there? And
but some of them do it well, like Anthony Jeselnik. Anthony Jeselnik does that shit well.
Finish.
Yeah, so I'm sorry.
Are you actually trying to make people laugh, or are you just trying to get applause for saying, and I'm woke and a lesbian and a hunchback, and I think that everybody should be loved, which isn't a joke either.
No.
Like, to me, if you're a comedian, nobody gives a fuck what you think. Make it entertainment. If you think that your job is to educate people about something, you better have a way to make it palatable through jokes. Otherwise, you're just a fucking, internet typist with a microphone thinking you've got an act. That's not an act.
No, it is not. You know, it's funny you say the word love, because I always hear that word among comedians more than anyone else too. I really loved learning about how Bob Saget said that to his friends every time he got off the phone. Mike Bullard and I are friends, and we say that to each other when we get off the phone. I admit, because I'm not from a social circle or an upbringing where I would tell my male friends, love you. But now I do it, and I get like, I skip a little. Like, I'm just like, I'm saying I love you to someone. Like, it just makes you feel good. Comedians are it's so funny. You seem like a comedian that, like, there's two kinds of comedians, as far as I can tell, if you had to polarize them. The sad comedian that had a lot of fucking hard shit, and the fucking happy comedian that just kind of found a way to get by relatively unscathed. Like, there seems to be like Seinfeld, I'd put in that latter category. You know what I mean? And Andy Dick in the form on that other side of the spectrum. You know what I'm saying?
Well, to be frank, I was very sad most of my life. I've battled depression, but I've battled and won. I've done the work and gotten the treatment and the therapy and the medical and everything to, make myself okay with myself and the world. Okay. But when I was young, I was very depressed most of the time. I'm sure a lot of the reason I got into comedy came out of that.
Well, that's good.
It's not really where the funny comes from, oddly enough.
Yeah, that's interesting. Then now that makes my whole point fall apart. But because I thought, because I've always known about the dark comedians. That's kind of like, there's been countless movies and books made about like sort of like the sad clown kind of thing. But there are some comedians have such a technical like regiment in how they develop material. And then there's someone like Bullard who never writes down a word. And I know he's an MC and like, but he's got a style that like people like, and he doesn't write. So that kind of range, to me is what makes comedy kind of interesting. One of the things that makes comedy kind of interesting.
Well, to me, it's like singer-songwriter. You write what you know, and it comes from who you are. Mm-hmm. So, it depends what kind of person you are. I mean, for me, I love the crowd work like Mike does, and I do it too. The quipping back and forth. I mean, I've got a million of those that I remember fondly. The joke where you're like, oh, I can't believe I came up with that in the moment. But I've also love a crafted joke and have a lot of a real act. And I'm not very narrative in my style either. I don't tell stories. I'm a joke writer in that sense.
I also saw maybe one of the reasons why you might have been sad when you were young is because you listed, and this could have been a bit too, but it was so funny. You listed Bill Cosby and Woody Allen as like two albums that you really loved to listen to when you were young, and whoever you were on with was like, oh, great. But the question though of separating the art from the artist, we're losing the ability to do that, I think, a little bit. And I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are. Not like it would be hard for me to watch a Bill Cosby show episode right now. I don't know why. It just feels like it probably would. Because he might be the most prolific rapist in American history. Like, so it doesn't feel right, you know?
No, look, I watched the Cosby Show when it was on and loved it. You know?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't watch it now. But part of, you know, so again,
Bill Cosby himself, I knew that album when I was 9. Like that was, you know,
right.
I loved it.
Or to Russell, my brother who I slept with, that entire B-side about him and his brother in bed and being brats. Fantastic, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, you know, and in the end, I can still think fondly about that stuff. But once you find out what kind of a person is, it's like Woody Allen. Frankly, he hasn't made a very interesting movie to me in many, many years. You know, before I knew who he was, I loved his work. I mean, he was among my favorites. You know, the early comedy movies and his stand-up really influenced me.
I don't think that the Woody Allen thing is actually all open and shut as people think, personally.
Well, whatever. Point is, I'm still creeped out by him.
Yeah.
Whether or not he did the thing with the little girl, he still married the you know,
they weren't actually ever living together, but your greater point is definitely, your greater point is definitely sound. It would be a little odd.
If I was dating somebody or married to somebody, and I suddenly found myself attracted to their daughter, I would run to save myself from that temptation. I would not succumb to that.
Yeah.
But that's
I would be in danger of dating a woman and then falling in love with her mother. I like older women.
Also creepy.
Yeah.
But
well, a little less creepy. It's creepy for the mom. Fucking taking her daughter's man like that. Like, it's not really my issue, is it? It's a little bit my issue.
I was going to say, but anyway, it's not important. I would never go to a Mel Gibson movie again. You know, I sort of come down on the side more of, I don't want to give them any money.
Yeah. And I like it how you make it an individual choice, though, and not like everybody has to think like me. I hate it when people do that. You know?
Well, that's my point. You know, it's look, I have lots of friends who are friends with people I don't like and don't deal with. I'm not telling them you can't be friends with this guy. What is it, grade 3? You know what I mean? And there are people who I'm friends with who've had fallings out with my friends, and I'm not going to give them up just because these two don't get along. That's how the world should work.
I actually love it when, because every once in a while, and this touches on something that you were saying a couple minutes ago about the horrible shit that people say to each other in these private little chats of 3, 4, 5 friends or whatever. Because I'm still in those, and it's really like it's like that arena is like the aristocrats, and you can literally say whatever you want because you're among trusted people and they know that you don't mean it in a certain way. And then when they leak, when it's famous people doing it, like the Johnny Depp stuff leaked or whatever, I didn't blink an eye. Because I think people know what stuff like that means really at the end of the day. And I think they like, there's a lot of people that are trying to like bend society towards this reflex of just being like, oh, you can't say that. You can't say it. And a lot of people used to call us crazy when we were talking about this 10 years ago. You know, like when we were saying like this kind, and then you brand it something like cancel culture and then they have something to cling to and criticize. But really, like there's so many things that you can't do or say anymore that you could do like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Right. But see, the thing about it is, though, first of all, there's always tension. There's always the pushback on any movement towards anything. I mean, this is just the nature of things, right?
Yeah.
But I'm of the opinion that if you really care about anything, then not hurting people. I mean, certainly in comedy, if you're not trying to hurt people, okay, there are ways to talk about just about anything. You have to decide who's the victim in a joke, right? And why are they the victim of the joke?
Yeah.
And you know, you watch a lot of this 70s stand-up comedy, right? Yeah. And it's guys imitating fags. And the big joke is, ow, my bum hurts. Now, to me, that's like, you know, I don't mind that that's gone away.
Yeah, me neither.
That's not funny because what's the joke? The joke is the guy is uncomfortable with homosexuality, really. But, you know, so I think there's you know, there are plenty of elements where that's fine. I think that you're entitled to make fun of people for their dumb choices and their dumb ideas and their dumb thoughts. But I think once it's no longer a choice, once you're making fun of the color of somebody's skin or anything, look, he's got no legs. Ha ha.
Yeah.
That's
Hey,
hilarious.
Stubby, how you doing? Yeah, I know. Like, it's just cheap jokes.
I'm just saying, it's just not funny to me, and I don't mind that people are ashamed. People used
Sometimes
to joke about drunk driving.
Yeah,
and
I know.
now it's an unacceptable thing to do.
South Park once famously said, "It's been 23 years. AIDS is finally funny." And not many people, thought that was funny at the time. It was like, okay.
Yeah, but again, now that you don't die from it, it's a little more fun than it was.
Yeah, it's a little more funny now. Hey, remember that time you were
getting
deadly?
it and dying? I mean, like many things.
Dave Chappelle represents for me, and I talked about this with Jonathan Kay once, the glitch in all that weird wokeness, because he's a black man who is, according to them, being really mean to the trans community. And I think he's just treating them the same way he would treat other groups of people that he also jokes about. And there's no irony that a lot of these like liberals, the really rabid ones that scream a lot and dye their hair pink, like are attacking a black man. When their usual rule is, don't disparage black people because, they've gone through enough or whatever the reason is, right? Like, and so it's watching that hypocrisy play out, because I guess the hierarchy now is that trans people are more oppressed than black people. And I think they literally make a calculation and then they're like, we can yell venom at you.
If they were making fun of Dave Chappelle for being black, that would be unacceptable, but they're not.
No, but they accuse people. They accuse people all the time of who criticize people who may happen to be black of only ever having one motive when they criticize a black person, because they're not a progressive who's doing the criticizing, and then they do it, and it's just like they don't. And I don't need them to follow their own rule. They're not criticizing Dave Chappelle because he's black. They're criticizing Dave Chappelle because they don't understand the joke, right?
Well, or maybe it's also a factor that. Like I think of Don Rickles, right? There was always people hating Don Rickles,
How could you hate Don Rickles?
Don Rickles his whole act was that. And he picked on absolutely everybody. There was no group or individual that he didn't make fun of. That was the act. So you knew it wasn't personal, and you knew he didn't mean any of it. The fact is that Dave Chappelle has now done like 3 specials in a row about trans people. That's not, I make fun of everybody. That's like, come on, man, you're a little obsessed here.
I don't think he's obsessed. I think he's reading the ether and he's getting criticized. Dude, every time another comedian gets in trouble, Dave Chappelle trends, because they always use his bits as the well, why can't we say that Dave Chappelle is hateful if we're saying such and such is? And you'll see every single time some other comedian trends, he'll trend along with it. And it's like, it becomes one of these things where it's like, if you're going to insult me almost like basically on a regular basis, he's like the J.K. Rowling of comedians. Okay, like he's basically called the trans. That's his identity, right? To like gender activist.
I guess.
Yeah, and I think that it's as a comedian is like, oh, okay, oh well then, okay, I'll keep going to that well as long as you tell me that I can't. Isn't it sort of that? Because I would do that too. I think.
I get it, and believe me, I understand the notion of you shouldn't, so you do. I mean, you want to. I mean, I have many friends who are unbookable because of that precise thing. Whatever they're told, look, the crowd is this, so try to avoid that. That's their opening and closing, right?
Venues are doing that, Simon.
I get that, right? But as far as I'm concerned, he can do whatever he wants. I just think it's a little wasteful, and my argument against it is nothing to do with what you should or shouldn't talk about. Do what you like. But on the other hand, live by the sword, die by the sword. Like, people are also entitled to go, well, this isn't funny and it's mean.
Are we missing a voice like George Carlin at this point in time because of how everything is polarized and we're all on eggshells and we're all kind of like pointing fingers and stuff.
I don't think we are on eggshells, first of all. I think comedians, generally speaking, I mean, I've never been a particularly controversial comic. So it's not really like I'm, and I've never been particularly woke either. I mean, I'm I make fun of, everybody equally who, frankly, is extreme. I mean, that's how I feel is, anybody who thinks that their shit doesn't stink and they have nothing to learn is, to me, fair game.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
On any side,
Yeah.
Closed-mindedness of the extremist, and it doesn't matter if you're the woke or the edgelord, right? It's the fact that you've picked a side in a war that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, it's like the war on terror, the culture war. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm saying, there's nothing that my side says or does that I'm not going to defend.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, well, but, why not just be your own person who goes, well, this is fine, and I understand in principle why you would do this, but in actual fact, this particular instance is not good, and I don't think this is worth doing. I'm not saying you shouldn't make a joke about the Holocaust, but as far as I'm concerned, the more sensitive the topic, the way funnier the joke better be.
Yeah, the delivery. Right, that's exactly right. There's a sense, I think, that that people want to sort of break away from labels now. Like, I think we're finally like trying to climb out of that trench of like left and right, and the things that many of us in the middle have been saying, oh, that doesn't matter, for years and years and years. But everything is sort of like designed around that. Social media is designed around the polarization of people, so they'll fight and stay on the site. News outlets are now a lot like that. Culturally, I think we're suffering a little bit, like, because of that kind of stuff. I actually think that the extremists are also places like Massey Hall, who literally will like do this weird Orwellian analyzation of the comics material before they allow them to play on their stage because of some moral, ethical kind of code for political correctness.
Yeah, but that's a private company and they can do what they want.
I know they can do it, but I'm allowed to go, hey, that private company is acting like a bunch of dicks. Like, I can say that, right? Like,
and that's your right too. Well,
right.
That's my point, right? Look, it's like the guy on the street downtown screaming about Jesus on the corner of Queen and Young. You know that guy?
I love that guy. I love that guy.
For decades.
Yeah.
Okay, he has free speech. He can do that. But free speech doesn't mean anybody has to actually platform you. He doesn't get to have a show on TV screaming at us that we're all going to hell because nobody wants to put that on TV.
Well, that's right. But he does us the ultimate service, which is representing religion in its original form, which is batshit crazy.
And my point is, he's entitled. We're all entitled to say what we want, but everybody else is entitled to listen or not listen. Nobody's allowed to just grab the mic. It's like, that's what I say about hecklers in a club. It's like, you know what? You think you're funny? Great. Sign up for amateur night. Then if you do well there, move on to regular nights. And then if you do well there, move on to headlining. And then you know what? Then you get the mic. But tonight, I'm the one who put in the years. I'm the one who's got the mic because I'm the professional. So you shut the fuck up because I've earned this spot.
Do you get over time in your career, did your, like, from 17 to now, let's just say, did you have different kind of like stages of how you were kind of nervous, or what made you nervous, or if you ever were nervous on stage? I'm just kind of curious.
I was terribly nervous when I started.
Yeah.
The fact is, I'm not really a performer by nature. I'm a writer. I'm a thinker, like my brain could be in a jar and it would be like the same person in a funny way. Some
Are you trying to say you're transparent? Is that?
I'm sorry?
Are you trying to say you're transparent?
No, I'm saying some people are more naturally entertainers. Like a lot of comics, it's not the acting or the performing that they have trouble with. It's the coming up with the jokes. I write 1 billion jokes a day and choose the ones I really want to do up there. The performing is what took me, and the comfort. I'm a self-conscious person. I'm not naturally like that's part of the reason I'm unambitious. I would hate to be famous. I would hate for people to bother me all the time and have to be like that to people all the time. It's not my nature, I'm
Yeah, no, I
happy
get it.
once in a while somebody sees me and goes, "Hey, I like your show," and I go, "Thank you, that's very nice." But like the idea of like crowds of people and me like, "Hi," that would not be me. So the performing aspect took me a long time to get comfortable. Now I'm fine because I've figured it out.
Yeah, it's such an art form. Like TV writing for sitcoms, people knock it a lot, but like it's really difficult sometimes to like squeeze things into that kind of format. And oh, here, like I'm gonna test a joke on you. I work at a library. Okay, so from a comedian standpoint, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to say if a comedian would this be like, James Patterson has written so many books that his pen name is Danielle Steele. Okay. Fucking asshole. You know, no good? Come on, man. You know what you're doing. You're
Yeah,
doing
I
this-
do know what I'm doing.
The cold face. That's like, I walked into that one.
Sorry,
Because
man.
it's an art form. No, I don't need it to be good. I'm actually, it actually proves my point if you don't think it's funny, because I don't think people understand how hard it is to evoke the emotion of laughter. I think it's
Here's
the
the
hardest thing
thing:
to do.
it's not an emotion; it's a response. I have many scientific theories about comedy, but the reason that it's less respected than many art forms is because, unlike most art forms, it's like judo. So part of it is you've got to get the people to feel like you're just conversing so that you can flip them with the joke and they laugh. They got to be sort of relaxed into the moment of tricking their brain into laughing. That's why so many people watch a show and go, "Oh, I could do that. He's just talking." And then you're like, "Okay, by all means, you know." And
Timing.
once they get up there, they realize, "Wow, this is not just talking."
Yeah. And it's often a totally different ecosystem when you're there. It's always funnier when you're there. And I don't know, is that because of the tribal aspect? Like everyone else is laughing and it just makes you want to laugh a little bit? Like, is that called
That's
something?
part of it. Part
Yeah.
of it is also because, you know, the experience. If you're a good comic, you have antenna. The experience is give and take. It's a feedback thing with whoever shows up. It's a very different situation than when you're on television. And even when you're on television, they're not filming a comic in isolation and broadcasting it. You know, there's an audience there laughing. You need that. It's as I said, it's a pass fail art form. Music is music with nobody listening. Comedy, if it's a tree in the forest. If nobody's around, it's nothing.
Yeah, and that's what's magical about it. Is it Steve Martin? I maybe get this wrong. But is it Steve Martin that did that thing often where he would deliberately insult the crowd just to win them back again? Was that him that started that? Because I heard he's famous for it. And then,
Really? I
yeah.
don't remember that.
Yeah, I was at the Comedy Store or something, and in like the 70s, like in the late 70s or early 80s or something, where he was just, that was his thing. And sometimes it crashed and burned, which is another thing I really love about comics, because you never hear about Julia Roberts, like, you know, really blowing a scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
well, but again, she's on film.
I know why. Yeah, but the
I mean, if
performance,
she
that's what
does,
I
they'll take it 20 more times until she
That's
gets
right.
it the way they want.
That's why that's why I have such a
I mean, has
respect
she
for
ever
comedians.
been in a play, Julia Roberts, where she actually had to do it live once?
She was married to Lyle Lovitz. Does that count?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Um,
what are you up to right now? You're. Oh wait, I was gonna say one last thing about. I was interested in this because just before I watched you say this, I watched an interview with Bob Dylan in 2004, and the interviewer asked him if he could still summon the magic that he had when he was writing songs in like the early 60s, mid 60s, whatever. And I was surprised because I always thought he was kind of an egoist, that he was like, no, that magic is gone. And like 10 minutes later, I was doing my my Simon deep dive, and I saw an interview that you did where you were talking about Paul Simon, the songs from the 60s. I'm paraphrasing because I didn't write it down, but the songs from the 60s and the 80s may sound different but they come from the same place or something like that. You know, and it's what you know, and you write about what you know, so that's why they don't sound the same as they would, but it's still like an authentic art thing. And then I heard Bob Dylan, he's just like, I don't make the magic anymore. Is there a thing like where comedians, is there a general rule of thumb where like if you're working hard and everything like that, that comedians become better if they do this, that, or the other thing, or worse if they do this, that, or the other thing? I'm just because a guy who knows nothing about the innards of comedy.
Okay, well, for
really
me,
interested.
I mean, I'm one of the last of my age working. Many of my colleagues, who are alive, don't gig because, frankly, they were lazy and gave up on the work.
Yeah.
I'm still going out to open mics every week and trying things and thinking about what's going on in my head and the world and writing new bits. Some people, they get their 40 minutes or 45-minute headline set and they go, okay, that's it, I'm done. And then they don't understand why 20 years later it's just not as effective,
Yeah.
Well,
You
'cause
guys
that
are like the
commercial
hip hop
you're
scene.
referencing hasn't been on in 20 years.
I know. Yeah. You guys are like Tux medicated pad with the whole thing.
Yeah.
You guys are like rappers.
Okay.
You're like an underground rapper, Simon Rakoff.
I get that a lot.
Yeah. I'm sure you do. But no, because you can. It's about the craft. It's about like not being embarrassed for going to the smaller club to like try their new tracks and all that kind of stuff. And then there's people that like think they're. I don't know.
I've always been about doing what I want. The only non-renewable resource is time. Yeah. I've never cared about money or fame or anything other than what am I doing with my time that makes me feel good about myself. And what makes me feel good about myself is working on my stuff, writing new stuff. There's no feeling like you try a new bit and it kills and you're just like, it's like finding gold if you're one of those old-timey miners, I think.
And I think that the little people like us who aren't professional comedians know what it feels like at a micro level when we make our family laugh at Thanksgiving. Like we understand what the energy exchange is, right? We don't have it, obviously, it's a totally different level, but the way that we can connect with you guys over any other type of performer. I wrote a piece once that was like, in an Orwellian world, only comedians can save us. And I honestly meant it. It's a noble profession you guys have. And the best part about it is that you guys are like, I don't know what's so fucking noble about me. Like you guys are really surly and funny, and you don't laugh at hosts' jokes and make them feel stupid, and I love it.
I'm sorry. Well, you know what? You know what would be worse if I patronized you? Imagine if instead here was my reaction to your pen name joke. If I said Daniel Steele, that's really,
because they both write books, and it's like
come up with that. Did you? No, come on. You had somebody come in and write that for you.
Simon Rakoff wrote that for me, I'll have you know.
Exactly. Can you imagine? No. That would be really disgraceful.
It really would.
I have not much respect for you, James.
Well, how did you meet Bullard?
He came to the comedy scene and I was already there because I've been around longer than everybody.
Sometimes you answer questions like I'm supposed to know this. I don't fucking know.
Well, some interviewers do research. Whatever. You do you, man.
I was like, I couldn't. It's not my fault. I couldn't find anything.
His brother Pat was a comic first.
I know. Then he became a writer,
so
right?
I knew Pat when he showed up. And then Mike would come and hang around. And then eventually Mike did it too.
I'm 5'6", I'm bald, and I have a little bit of a belly, and I wear glasses, and I have a beard. Do you think we would fight if we met in person? Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Like a couple of minions.
We could be, exactly. We could play those, those tricks on teachers where we switch classes.
Totally. Just kidding. I like talking to comedians. They make me feel good. They make me feel uncomfortable. Sometimes they throw me off my interview game, but I don't care. I like it. I like you guys a lot.
I enjoyed it,
and almost none of you like me, which is really interesting.
Who said that? I think you're a wonderful person. With
okay,
many
well,
fun
thank
qualities.
you. Thank you. This is the patronizing part.
Bald, the belly. Come on, what more could I ask for?
I'm bald and I live with my parents. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, do you really?
No, that's a George Costanza thing. I just went with the
right. Okay, yeah.
No, I live with my surrogate parent, which is my recently ex-wife, and now I'm watching life slide back into view. So it's good.
Well, I'll tell you, I have 2 ex-wives, and it's only painful briefly. And
can you put him in a cage match and just have him go at it?
Oh no, believe me, they'd turn on me first. They would team up quickly.
You're the promoter. Nothing would happen to you. You'd be fine.
Yeah, that's right.
Are you doing? Sorry. Are you like? And are you writing like for TV right now? Like, I'm just curious what you're doing on the back end there.
I'm basically doing my own stuff, but I'm very busy. I just was in Winnipeg at the festival there, and I'm off to Ottawa next week for a week. Actually, my nephew is getting married, which is nice.
Oh,
So
awesome.
I booked the club for a week, the Absolute Club in Ottawa, and I'll get the Friday night off for the wedding,
Sweet.
which is really nice. And tomorrow or Thursday I'm in Hamilton at some theater there. I forget. I should remember these gigs.
Yeah.
But you know what? I have a website
Okay.
where I write everything down as soon as I'm booked, so that I don't forget, and so that people can check it out. myname.com, simonrakoff.com, obviously. And I have an album which I recorded a few years ago, but you can buy it on Amazon Music and download it to your machine, to your computer, or whatever you do.
What's the album called?
It's called Surrounded by Idiots.
Okay. I'm gonna show it now because I just found it, so I'm gonna
Perfect.
put it up on this. Yeah. We'll get. I never think of promos because I don't have any sponsors at all, and so therefore I never even think of it. And
okay.
also, some people can't do it right. Some people are like, one person brought like this like soda pop, and didn't say anything, just like went like that, and I'm like,
Just held it.
just held it
I
there
have
like a
merchandise
Barker
at my
Beauty,
show. At my show, I sell a little cardboard cutout doll of myself, like a 3D foldable. I call it my in-action figure. I sell that
That's
at my
cool.
shows.
Okay, so your album is coming up right here. Bam.
Okay, you do it. I'm not. Yeah, that's it. Surrounded by idiots. Exactly.
Yep. That's interesting. That's like my buddy. That's his logo. Like the way that's him. That's how
face
everyone
palm.
knows him. Yeah. So it's good. You chose an image that people can relate to. Did you know that you're supposed to judge a book by its cover because that means that the publisher cared enough to spend money on art?
I know a little bit about that.
Yeah.
My brother and sister are both authors, so
Yeah.
I know
Learn
something
new.
about publishing.
It was a pleasure meeting you. I'm gonna have Bullard on the next time you come on, so I can get you guys to be funny
Sure,
with
I
each
always
other,
love
so I don't
chatting
ever
with
have to be
Mike.
funny again. You know what it is? It's like I wasn't trying to be funny with you, but it was in the back of my mind more than other guests. I think I'm funnier on other shows, and the comedians are like, you guys intimidate me because your job is doing something better than I can do it, and I think it bothers my ego a little bit.
I understand. Look,
Yeah.
I love to sing. I sing all the time. But if I was on here with Sting, I wouldn't sing because I don't need to be shown up.
Yeah, but you
I
know what the
get it.
funny thing is, and I mean this. This is not a bit, and I'll send you some stuff. I'm quite an accomplished rapper. To tell you
I
the
believe
truth.
you.
Yeah, and it's like we're all weird. Simon Rakoff, thank you for coming. Will you come back after this awkward experience?
Anytime.
Okay, great. I
I
can't
had a
wait.
good time. I enjoyed myself. You're so defensive about it.
I know. I don't know what it is. You know what? It might be the 20 milligrams of weed that I forgot. I knew the podcast was there. I was like, oh shit, the 20 milligrams of weed. And I was a little stoned this podcast, and I think it's a great learning experience. I think that
You weigh the weed you smoke?
No, I don't weigh it. It's like these edibles, these like little.
Oh, I
juices.
see. Right. I
Yeah.
understand.
And so I ate 2 of them, and I was like, oh, all right, the podcast. And I'm clearly
that'll-
pretty
that'll
stoned
make
throughout the
sense.
whole episode, and it might make a great case study for how not to do a podcast.
You were fine. I enjoyed it.
I'm going to stop. I'm never going to stop
I'm
laughing.
looking. There's people making comments here.
Yeah, there's people that often they talk about baking,
Oh no, I don't see that.
and sometimes, and I have a harem in there. It's a true story. Don't ask. But they're like a digital harem, so I don't really get anything out of it. But there are regulars actually. I shouldn't make fun of them. There are regulars. They watch this show and the Dean Blundell show, and I don't know what other shows. I'm sure there's a few.
Lucky
But
you.
yeah, we have a base. That's our base right there.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. I did like having you on, and I did like being stoned while having you on. And I want you to come back with Bullard and talk and teach me about comedy, because I'm realizing how little I know every time I talk to a comedian. I thought I knew things.
Well, and I have many theories, and as I said, scientific theories about it that I could discuss. If Mike was there, I bet he'd agree with many of my thoughts. So yeah, let's do this again soon.
He would agree because he wouldn't know how to contribute to the scientific discussion. Let's be honest.
Believe me, he may not have thought about it consciously, but I assure you he knows.
Yeah, he's one of the greatest glad handers of all time, and I mean that with respect. I was at Sauble Beach with him once, and it was like we walked like 4 blocks from the car to a couple places to shop to the food place and back to the car. 50 people were like stopped him to say hello. Like he was like Elvis. It was weird.
Yeah, but the thing about Mike is, for his fans, anything. But the people who, in the business who he doesn't care about, he's very straightforward with them.
That's good. We need more of that.
He's honest. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He's not kissing the ass of the producer. He's
That's
kissing
right.
the ass of the fans, because that's who really employs us.
In fact, one might even say that sometimes Bullard doesn't have the wherewithal to not burn the bridge of the person that he doesn't like.
Well, that's a very common issue with my people.
It's
As
common
the
with me
joke
too.
goes, cross the bridge, then burn it.
And with that pearl of wisdom, Simon, thank you so much, man. We'll have you on again soon. I appreciate you coming.
Thank you so much. Be well.
You too. I got in trouble a couple of times of being on the Dean Blundell show because I was stoned. And I'm not going to lie to you. Now I know why. Like, I'm like, during the show, I'm just like, why do I feel this way? And it's because I took 20 milligrams of jubes like it was nothing, and then digested them. And then like, it was 15 minutes to podcast. And I'm like, and I think I remembered for a second that I'm like, well. And then like 10 minutes into the podcast, like, I'm clearly stoned. I'm so happy it's legal. I could talk about it like this and show everyone how I'm an idiot. Yeah, Simon is fun to have on the show. Simon was fun to do the deep dive on too, because it was Bullard and a few other people were telling me he's a comics comic. There's certain guys like that, like the Salt of the Earth comic in the comic community or something like that. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but he's, he's just one of those diverse kind of members of a really kind of exclusive clubs of people that make us laugh. And I will always have, I find comedians to be endlessly fascinating, and none of them seem to be alike. And I like that. So, okay, tomorrow. Let's get serious now, everybody. Tomorrow, we're going to have our first weekly update of the Klondike Papers releases. So what that means is that all the reports that came out on Press Progress, all the reports that came out on Dean Blundell and Blackballed Media and other places and the podcast, we are going to recap those stories. We might drop a few hints as to what might be coming next. We might talk about other writers that we're working with. But I don't want it to gain this clearly deliberate tactic that seems to be happening on social media about like the far right typical, the fuck Trudeau flag people are saying that it's a big conspiracy theory, that it's that it's like batshit stuff, and this is coming from QAnon people basically, and so it's kind of funny. I can assure you that of two things. If I'm being very honest, I'm going to give you two factoids, and one of them you might not know about. And I think it's important that at least that that we're trying to be transparent. The first thing is that I have the Klondike Papers, and there are legit stories in there. There are stories and documents that have been confirmed via secondary sources. There's like 3-4 witnesses sometimes to the same thing. And it is also true that for a 4 gigabyte file, there is an extensive amount in there. I would say probably like 25% that might like just have no business at all being in there. And it could also be considered to be a tad disorganized. So you got to be really meticulous when you go through it. So, I probably put like 25, 30 hours on just trying to organize it for myself because I'm already a scatterbrain and I don't need that. But I can assure you, that if there is something in there that's blatantly false, we're not going to run it, for one thing. If we publish something that turns out to be false, which would be very rare and something that I don't think would happen often at all, we would tell you. I have no issue admitting some sort of mistake or whatever. I have no issue contacting people named in that dossier as people who appear to do shady things. And I want to mention one of those people right now, and that's former Conservative Party General Counsel Gerald Chipper, who, clearly paid an investigator money so that they could basically hunt down a person who was trying to stay out of the clutches of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. And the church lied and said that they had that there were criminal warrants out for this person, Richard Marsh. I keep doing that. Who's been on my show twice. And the idea that the idea that there is a person out there that is helping an institution like a cult-like organization hunt down a person who was a whistleblower with something that happened in the UK, but really like is not a danger to this company as far as anything other than money. And you start to quickly take another look at the players that are involved and think to yourself, well, why would this person even admit in an email that you're working on behalf of this cult to hunt down this person through a, at the time, shady political fixer? And the reason why is because everybody's shady in politics. There are no good guys. And I'm not saying they're equal. They're all a different varying degree of bad. But Gerald Shapur also happens to have his roots just down the road from where I live, as I found out today or yesterday. Nothing crazy has happened to me or anything, but all of a sudden it's like, oh, I live literally like a mile away from all of the relatives of the person that I am saying, is doing all these things based on this dossier. And of course I stand by the stories and the reporting. But because of all the nefarious things that have sort of happened or appear to have happened in all these different areas of this story that seem to revolve around like a dozen conservative operatives and religious people, I just want to let everybody know that I live a really peaceful existence here. And somebody came into my work when I wasn't there. I am not connecting these because that would be irresponsible, but I'm going to tell the story anyways, just because, this story has done certain things to me. Like it's made my wheels turn. It's made all this stuff, but it's a little coincidental that I put out a pretty scathing report about a certain individual. And then in that individual's hometown where I work, someone came in and asked about me, didn't leave his name, and then kind of hung out outside of the library waiting for me to get there, even though I wasn't working that day. And I hope it's nothing, but I just felt like I wanted to say it out loud on a broadcast so that the off chance that it's something, at least I'm on record saying I have no proof of anything, but it's a little suspicious. I was outside last night on my deck, and I'm going to tell David this so you guys don't have to do it for me, but I heard a creak, and it could have been a coyote, a wolf, a bear, rabbit. And you know what I did? I said out loud, it's not me you should be after, it's David Wallace. I swear to God I said that. There was probably no one there. Stories like this mess with your head. This guy was hunted down on like 3 continents. There was all of these like people that everyone was hiring a private investigator against someone else, and wire transfers and other people's name and aliases and all this fucking shady shit, burner phones, like people saying, I'll give you $500,000 to bring me the arm and leg of Nathan Jacobson. People saying, take out the prime minister, name your price, all of this like coded language from a grade 4 Hardy Boys book. And, and now I got some stranger visiting my work on a day I put out a scathing story about a guy in the hometown of that person where I happen to live and just found out yesterday. My mother-in-law is like related to part of his family. So maybe I can get in on get a pass on like a 17th cousin thing. But that's that. I promise I won't get stoned before another podcast. You will not see another podcast like this because I don't get stoned before a podcast except when I used to do Dean's show in 2020. But I'm transparent about it. Love you guys. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. Bye.
Blackballed. 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 Blackballed.